Today, we're going to use data analysis to take a look at the actual questions asked by companies in coding interviews in 2025. We will see why the official interview preparation guides can be more outdated than your LinkedIn profile, and why interviewers can pick any questions they like. It's actually less predictable than what they had for breakfast in the morning. We're going to answer the following questions. Most common topic. Which company asks design questions? How frequent is DP? How frequent is math? Is Neetcode 150 actually still good in 2025? So just for brief context, Neetcode 150 is a curated list of 150 LeetCode questions made by the YouTuber called Neetcode back in 2022. It was essentially the groundbreaking best guide to prepare for coding interviews, with the premise that if they have done these 150 questions, they're more or less ready. Now, it's been 3 years. The software engineering landscape has changed dramatically, and the type of questions and the trends have also probably changed. While LeetCode 150 is still the most popular question list at the moment. So today we're going to see if it's actually still the gold standard. For today's video, the source of the questions is this repository called company-wise problems. It basically has the most popular questions, including the frequencies for different companies. And what I did was to use some Python libraries to process and visualize the results. So let's take a look. So meta. Relatively even distribution, hash table and two pointers are asked equally frequently. You can see how they actually do ask dynamic programming questions. Word break, climbing stairs, trap in rain, water, best time to run cell stacks, they're all DP questions. In fact, I learned climbing stairs from my real analysis math class, and the teacher used DP to solve it. So these are DP questions, but why does Meta actually tell you that you don't need to study DP in their interview guide? And many people have asked this. Now, the lore has it that when they made the interview guide, they did not consider top-down memorization as dynamic programming questions. But in academia and in our preparations, they are effectively dynamic programming questions. So that's why even if you're interviewing for Meta, you still have to prepare for dynamic programming. And the same goes for math. Meta actually asks more math questions than Google does, which is surprising given Google's reputation for asking more difficult algorithm problems. And here the percentage would add up to 100, but here we're just saying the percentage among all topics, including the ones not shown. And here you can see the least frequent topics, which I think is especially valuable because you might be tempted to spend maybe like the evening before interview studying Union Find, when in reality it's almost never asked. So your time is better spent studying, say, DFS or backchecking. Now, Apple is the only company in FAANG that actually focuses a lot on design questions, which is interesting, given how Apple is famous for having good user experiences. So it matches up. And these are legit design questions, like tic-tac-toe, hit counter, but also it has harder problems such as min stack, deserialize binary tree. So actually be prepared for design questions, especially if you're interviewing Apple. Now Amazon. Probably the most evenly distributed breakdown among all FAANG companies, unlike your schedule during the on-call week, unfortunately. They have math problems as well, a lot of two-pointer problems, and not many design problems. Netflix somehow only has a very small sample size in the repository, just like their attention span for original content. I would say that maybe focus more on sliding window and hash table if you're interviewing for Netflix. Now you see how niche topics also get asked sometimes for specific companies. Next one is Google. Google has a good amount of math problems, stack problems, which is actually asked a lot less for other companies. And I'm pretty sure I got asked stack problems as well in my interview. And FAANG companies overall has 10% of math problems, 13.5% also of dynamic programming problems. BFS and DFS together about the same portion as DP. So be sure to actually be good at graph questions as well. The more useful information from the aggregated results are probably the least likely problems, like the interactive type of problems. For companies like Google that just interview you on a Google Doc, it doesn't really make that much more sense to make the problem interactive. You don't actually have to worry too much about them. Same goes for combinatorics. A lot of formulas there, a lot of tricky math, but in reality, they really don't get asked that much. This is the table for all companies, including non-FAANG companies like Adobe, for example. And you can see the same trend. You don't really have to be too crazily familiar with statistics, probability, advanced graph theory, or even minimal spanning tree that I'm sure you have learned in school. But nobody would have told you at the time that it's actually never asked in coding interviews. So today I'm just like breaking it down for you guys to shed light on the discrepancy between academia and coding interviews. And this is my own breakdown from just my LeetCode problems. As you can see later in the chi-square test, I haven't done a really good job because I only did the data analysis today, but I've been somewhat intentional in keeping it balanced. Now we're going to take a look at the chi-square test for Neetcode 150. Comparing with all company questions together, the distributions are statistically different compared with the FAANG companies. It's statistically significant, and when you look at the actual distributions, that DFS, BFS graph, they ask actually more by maybe like 7-8% compared to the actual interview questions. And array or like array-based problems like two-pointer or hash table or even linked list, I think they're slightly less represented in the LeetCode 150 list. So overall, what have we learned? The most frequent topic for interviews is actually hash table. The company that really likes to ask about design questions among FAANG is Apple, which you might have guessed. DP is unfortunately frequent enough for you to need to seriously study it. Math is actually also frequent enough, but the good news is that you don't have to study anything crazy like linear sieve or the Chinese remaining theory, which I actually put so much efforts in studying when I was preparing for the algorithm interviews, and I never got asked. Why? Because I never did analysis like this. And the last question, is Neetcode 150 still enough? My answer is that it can be a solid starting ground, but it's actually important, at least in the short term before your actual interview, to tailor your preparation, your mindset toward the company's specific profile. The complete code and data analysis is in the description below. Download it, run your own analysis, and find out which company is most likely to ask you to implement a blockchain in 20 minutes. If this helped you prepare for interviews, smash that like button and subscribe for more informed career advice. Drop a comment to let me know which company's question distribution surprised you the most. But honestly, before you go, I know that interviews can feel overwhelming. Trust me, I've been there. Staying up till 2 AM grinding LeetCode, feeling like you're never prepared enough, wondering if you'll ever be good enough for these companies. The interview process, as we have seen today, is a bit of a mess. But it's the game we have to play, at least right now, to get to do what we love, solving interesting problems, building cool things, and getting paid pretty well to do it. So until next time, keep coding, keep learning, and remember, the real interview was the confidence we built, the problems we learned to break down, and the realization that we belong in the industry just as much as anyone else. Peace.